Here's the recap of American Horror Story Freak Show. Elsa founded her freak circus in Florida, but it was not very popular, and too few people came to the concerts. Then the woman decided to make changes in the program and found conjoined sisters Beth and Dot. The girls have one body, one pair of arms and legs, but two heads, hearts, and spines. Elsa is convinced that the two-headed girls will be the highlight of her show, so she persuades them to join the troupe. Meanwhile, it turns out that they killed their own mother, so laying low in the freak circus would be a good idea. Soon they meet other freaks, the bearded woman Ethel, her claw-handed son Jimmy, and other guys. Time passes, and Elsa prepares a new program for the performance. But during the preparation, not everything turns out smoothly, because the new members of the troupe in the person of Dot and Beth want to get a special role in her show. After a while, a detective comes to their tent and calls them monsters, showing his contempt for every person with congenital features and anomalies. Jimmy decides to stand up for the girls, but eventually the situation gets out of control and he kills the detective. Soon the local rich man Gloria and her son Dandy come to the show. The man looks at the freaks with delight and asks Elsa to sell him sisters. However, the woman refuses him, and then the guy visits Jimmy, trying to convince him to take him in the show. But even here he receives a refusal and then falls into a rage, which decides to subdue his mother. It turns out that recently she met a clown who has been killing innocent people for several years. The woman doesn't know about it, but makes him something of a pet, who ends up running away from Dandy anyway. However, he finds him and learns about the clown's manic tendencies, after which he decides to join him and starts imitating the killer. Elsa is visited by a married couple, Dell and Desiree, who have a breast abnormality. The family asks to join the troupe, and Elsa agrees to take them in. In addition, it turns out that Dell is the biological father of Jimmy, but the guy himself does not know it yet. Many years ago, he had a relationship with Ethel, but when he saw claws instead of hands on his son, he wanted to kill him, but decided to just leave the family. Meanwhile, a couple of scammers, Stanley and Maggie, show up at one of the museums with exclusive exhibits. Under the guise of a Yeti cub, they try to sell a goat embryo. But the museum keeper quickly reveals their fraud, but does not drive them away and offers them a deal. If they can find something really valuable, she won't ask too many questions and will pay them for their work. Then Stanley sends Maggie to Elsa's freak show to take new exhibits from there, killing circus performers. The plan works and the girl is taken into their troupe. Meanwhile, the conjoined sisters Beth and Dot offer to prepare another performance and play it on Halloween. But everything is not so simple because there is a legend about Mr. Mordrake. It turns out that this man lived in the last century and was quite talented, but had one feature that could not be accepted by the public. He had another face on the back of his head, which sometimes forced him to do terrible things. Mordrake tried to get rid of it in many ways, but all his attempts were in vain. Eventually, he joined the freak circus to take his place among his kind, but at one point he killed the entire crew. Since then, there is a belief that whoever performs any role on Halloween will attract the spirit of Mordrake, who will kill them all. Soon Maggie asks Jimmy to take her to the nearest phone booth so that she can contact a relative and assure her safety. The boy agrees, but does not yet know that she is actually calling Stanley and reporting to him the situation in the circus. Returning home, the couple have to abandon their vehicle and hide in the woods. Because of the murders of the maniac in the city, a curfew has been imposed, and the police are constantly patrolling the roads. Suddenly, they notice a clown dragging a girl into the woods and decide to help her, but end up getting trapped. Jimmy manages to create a distraction, and in the meantime, Maggie and the rest of the prisoners escape. Meanwhile, the circus did have a Halloween performance. Mr. Mordrake and the ghosts of his troupe show up at the freak show. He listens to the story of everyone he visits, trying to figure out the darkest soul and take it with him. That's how he finds Elsa, who tells him about her past. It turns out that a long time ago she was a prostitute who once had her legs cut off by customers with a chainsaw, in addition to filming the spectacle on camera. As a result, the video quickly spread, and with it her shame. She was rescued that day by one of her clients, who nursed her back to health for a long time and soon had prosthetic legs made. Mordrake finds her story horrific, and at the command of the face in the back of his head, he is about to take her life. But at the last moment chooses another victim, so he ends up in the woods where the clown is holding Jimmy. The maniac tells his story, trying to explain how he became like this. He used to delight kids with his performances, but he had bad luck with his co-workers. One day they decided to make fun of him so much that in the end the clown tried to kill himself. But the bullet went through, disfiguring his face but saving his life. So he got the idea to free children from their parents, who were always telling them what to do. He ended up killing the children's relatives and taking the kids into the woods to perform. Mordrake decides that it is the clown, not Elsa, who should go with him today and kills him. Soon Maggie's sidekick, named Stanley, shows up and tells Elsa that conjoined sisters would look good on his show in Hollywood. The woman doesn't show any sign of being upset, but soon decides to take Beth and Dot to Dandy, who has his eye on them. Meanwhile, she informs everyone else that the girls just took off and ran away. But Jimmy doesn't believe her and goes on a search, after which he returns the sisters to the troupe. However, the girls protect Elsa, and in return ask her for a substantial sum of money, which should be enough for the operation to separate them. Elsa tells Stanley about a conversation with Beth and Dot, and the man suggests that she get rid of them. At this time, Ethel overhears them and decides to kill her longtime friend, but Elsa throws a knife at her and fakes suicide with a Stanley. Meanwhile, he learns that Dell has a non-standard orientation and threatens to tell the troupe about everything. Fearing publicity, the man agrees to fulfill his request and kill some freak. The choice falls on the world's smallest woman. He steals her and chokes to death, after which her body is sent to a museum of deformities. After a while, Dandy kills his mother and goes in search of more victims. He bribes a local detective and puts Jimmy behind bars for his evil deeds. Soon Stanley comes to him and tells about a lawyer who can help him, but he will have to pay a huge sum. So the guy has no money, but he has claws that can be sold profitably. Stanley offers him help in this difficult case, and the guy agrees. Meanwhile, Maggie begins to feel guilty because she fell in love with Jimmy, who was taken away by detectives. She decides to reveal the truth about her partner to Desiree and brings her to the museum where she sees the boyfriend's claws. That's how everyone finds out that Stanley has been lying to everyone, and eventually Jimmy does end up behind bars. Then the freaks come up with a plan to intercept and free the guy. However, now the Jimmy without two hands cannot take care of himself and rejects Maggie's help. Because of her, his buddies died. The troupe presents Stanley with a gift in the form of the severed head of the museum keeper, after which they all attack and brutally torture him. However, the revenge does not end there, because the troupe begin to realize that Ethel could not have killed herself, and behind her death, most likely, is Elsa. Beth and Dot decide to give the last good advice to Elsa and ask her to leave as far away as possible, which she does, but before leaving she sells the rights of ownership of the circus to the psychopath Dandy. The guy decides to make himself the highlight of the program, but when he finds out that no one buys tickets for his show, he gets mad. As a result, he takes a gun and kills almost all the freaks who get under his hand. Only Beth and Dottie doesn't dare to kill, as he has tender feelings for them. In the end, he marries the sisters, unaware of their true intentions. It turns out that they slipped something into his drink, causing his mind to cloud. That's when Jimmy and Desiree show up. The trio grabs the psychopath and brings him back to the circus, having immersed Dandy in a large container of water. The protagonists watch his slow death. Meanwhile, Elsa arrives in Hollywood and miraculously meets a junior casting assistant. As a result, she marries him and her career takes off. Soon she is offered to perform on Halloween, which she flatly refuses to do because of the ghost of Mr. Mordrake, which, of course, she does not tell her superiors. But the challenges don't end there either. It turns out that her management has gotten access to one old video of her as a prostitute lying in pools of her own blood because of her severed legs. Not giving the video publicity will not work, which means her career is about to end. It also became known about the bloody massacre at the freak show circus she once headed. Elsa didn't know about it, so she was as surprised as anyone else, realizing that her glory days are numbered. The woman begins to think about missed opportunities and female happiness, from which she turned away because of the desire to become famous. Now that everything that was once dear to her is gone, the Elsa agrees to go on stage on Halloween. She takes this step consciously because she wants to summon Mr. Mordrake to kill her and take her with him. The plan works, but the ghost does not make her part of his dead troupe, but sends her to her own circus. So Elsa returns home, where all her loved ones, including Ethel, hold no grudge against her. Meanwhile, survivor Desiree is married and happy with her lover. Jimmy lives with Beth and Dot, and soon there will be an addition to their family. This is the end of the season 4. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and click the like button. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.